What's going on YouTube? My name is Straw Hat Izzy, aka the Izzy Cruz, and today I am with my other half, Nobu, who's going to be showing you his Ulforce deck list that he has been playtesting with, and I think it's a really cool deck, so take it away, Nobu.
Hi everybody, it's me, Nobu. I'm gonna be showing you Ulforce today. I'm not 100% confident with the list yet. It's still going through some testing phases and whatnot, but yeah, it's still really fun to play, and I enjoy, like, messing around with it in my free time. So,
How do you feel about Ulforce in the format, just in general?
so, when we're saying Ulforce, people are thinking of either the old Ulforce that unsuspends whenever you suspend it, Blue Tamer, or they're thinking of this new starter deck Ulforce. I tend to prefer this card because it's slightly worse than the other one, but the other one requires your entire deck to be based around it. This Ulforce you can just throw into a deck, and it's just a generically good blue card.
Sounds great. All right, let's get into the deck list.
Okay, so let's start out with the eggs. We're running 4 Uppa and 1 Demi V. So the whole point of the deck is to get to 8 cards as quickly as you can. Uppa really helps to facilitate that. I mean, we've been playing this card since 1.0. We already know how just crazy it is to draw cards when the opponent has to hard slam something down. And especially in a format where we're playing against Gabu Bond or we're playing against Jesmon that's hard calling like Huckmons or Blancs. Uppa is really good at facilitating the 8 card hand. One of Demi V because you want to be playing 5 eggs for the grindy games, and plus 1k on your Ulforce is pretty pog.
Ulforce is pretty big. 12k, right?
Yeah, 12k for the starter deck Ulforce. It's pretty massive. Alright, so then from there we have the one of Alekmon, because I want a 1 of 2 cost rookie. It should really be Sandcastle Goma. This is just what I had available to me. I'm sorry, chat. I know I let you down. No, but it's just really good for like awkward memory situations where you're like, oh yeah, I'll put my opponent to, or put myself down to 1, and then Davis set my opponent to 3 after they like set up their tamer. It's just really good for those types of situations. From there, we're gonna be running 2 Drabus because there's a lot of the times where like if you want to put up a blocker, you want to be able to hard call down the rookies, but losing that card in the hand is actually super relevant for this deck because a lot of your benefits are based around having your own like 8 card hand. So being able to just chuck this down, Digivolve for 1, maintain that 8 card hand is really relevant in my mind.
So when you're talking about the 8 card hand, right? Do you find that
Yeah.
as a deterrent, or do you find that as helpful about like having 8 cards in your hand or more at
So
most times?
this is the this is my whole reason for playing this as a pet deck. I'm a slave to consistency. I think that if your deck is consistent, you should be winning a majority of your games. Which is part of the reason why I haven't really tinkered with Jesmon yet, because in my mind that's an inconsistent deck. Regardless of whether or not it is at this very moment in time. The whole benefit and draw towards this deck is that you are able to see almost every card in a lot of situations, and then from there you are able to go ahead and flex your spots depending on the opponent's deck. So for your towers specifically, depending on whether it's Jesmon, whether it is Sekkon, or whether it is Gabu, you have the 3 different variations of boss monsters that all help out your one main objective, which is to win the games for those matchups. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. So is it an All-Force deck or is it an Omnimon deck?
It's more of a blue good stuff deck, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Calling it Ulforce makes it seem like it's focused around that card, and while the OTK is there and prevalent, there is a large majority of the time where you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna dig, play my blue toolbox, and get to Omnimons as quickly as I can.
Sounds good.
From there, we're playing the best card in my deck, actual best card, for starter deck Gabu. The reason why he is so significant and good is because there are multiple people running Wyvern's Breath right now. And if you have an Omnimon with this Gabu underneath him, it is at 16k. And you now see why that's very funny. So in a lot of my tournament games, last week I played in the Joe Dobby event and played in the Guy Force Gaming event. In both events, my opponents went Wyvern's Breath, kill the Omni, and I'm like, okay, you're setting me to 6, the Omni's still alive because of Gabu, and then they like hurry up and try to take it back as quick as possible. Most
yeah.
of the time I let them, because I'm not trying to like shark the game, but if it is a tournament setting and they make that play and move the memory marker, and just forget about this Gabu being on all turns, then that's just a ton of free advantage. Plus it also serves the benefit of like making Ulforce more beefy, etc., etc.
Yeah, it's super relevant in Just One as well. When like you have a CL and you have an Omni, the one that can't be deleted by card effects, and then they Wyverns you, and you're like, well, Omni 16k on your turn, so sorry.
And then they just go, oh, whoops, and try to move it back. And then of course the star of the show, the Vmon. If I have 7 or fewer cards in my hand, I get to draw 1 when attacking. That really incentivizes like early game aggression. We'll see it when I get to my champions, but there aren't like many of them that I'm okay with them dying and losing that advantage, so like I'm not playing an Octomon. Which makes it like very, very rough to really like utilize this card fully in my mind. Because a lot of the early game is just like, okay, I have to sit back here and build up in the raising and hope that I'm not losing my like cards in hand. Because it's just a race to you having 8 cards and having a tower in the back. With that thought in mind, though, there are a lot of times where you swing, you draw your card off the Vmon, and then you get a ton of your other effects. Or like Vmon, Uppamon, and then you draw 2. This Vmon is also not once per turn, so if you unsuspend with either your Omnimon from 1.0 or your Ulforce, you get to trigger this effect multiple times.
That's super clean. I like I like that one and the Guillemon are both like super relevant cards in the format.
Yes, sir. The whole warping doesn't usually come up unless it's against specifically Setcon. The reason why it doesn't come up is because we're in like a Bond format or a Jesmon format where Jesmon just kills you, you're not getting another turn. So them having level 6 isn't super relevant, and Gabu just puts up their level 7 for 1 turn, and then, you know, it either dies or it's the end of the game. So.
Gotcha.
On to the champions. We're playing 4 Cordramon because that card's absurd. It's seeing play in Setcon, it's seeing play in Commandramon. It's just like one of the best cards ever printed. It also says draw 2 on it, which is very good for me getting 8 cards in my hand.
Big fan of Pot Agreed.
Yeah, you and I both. From there we have 3 Lobo-y Boy. I don't own 4 of this card. If I did own 4 of that card, it would replace the 1 of Gorillamon that I have. But I don't. So we're doing 3, 1 Gorillamon, and then 2 Coelamon. Blockers really suck this format. I've really considered changing this to Octo, but then that's a lot of 2 costs. So they might be other gorillas. I still want to tinker with it a little bit more.
Which one is more base, new Gorillamon or old Gorillamon?
Honestly, old Gorillamon. Old Gorillamon's the MVP. He has nostalgia bonus.
Chat, you let me know who's the more base Gorillamon.
From there we have our ultimates, which is just 4 Mach Gal, 4 Arrow V. You want your ultimate to be Arrow V like 9 out of 10 times. The only time that Mach Gal really comes up is if you're dealing with like a wide board state. But the issue with that is that Ulforce usually clears those situations anyway. So a majority of the time it is just there. It boosts up your DP if you have a Tamer, so that's pretty helpful in making Ulforce pretty big. But overall it's just like okay. So. Alright. It's not bad. I definitely just think that like other level 5s might be better. Specifically other level 5s that give Sec +1. So thinking more along the lines of like where Gururumon from starter decks, etc.
What about the old Arrow Vidramon?
The old Arrow Vidramon I have not tested with at all.
Okay.
That's the one that if it unsuspends, it gains jamming, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. That's fine, but you really want the Sec +1.
Gotcha.
just because that like facilitates tons more pressure than just doing 2 checks. From there we have our megas. We have Plesiomon. We have a card that doesn't exist. Zed Garurumon is bait. You're not playing that card. You might possibly play 2 Plesio instead of 1 Plesio, 1 Zed. Reason why Zed is horrible is because Mach Gao does what he does but better. Ulforce does what Zed does but better. There are a lot of times where Zed only punishes your opponent over committing, but he's a 1-of. So it's not like you can consistently punish that. All this to say, I hate that card. The card's bait.
Have you ever thought about Mirage Galgamon?
I have thought about it, but it requires my opponent's hand to be 8 cards, or no, it gains a memory for every 4 cards. So a large part of the time, it's like fine. It doesn't do anything that I can control, and so for that reason, I'm not a huge fan of playing the card.
It can't be blocked. That's pretty cool.
Right, but at that point, you can also just play like Slayer Dramon, where it can't be blocked and has Sec +1.
Ooh, I mean, you should consider Slayer Dramon.
I'm. It's definitely something I'm considering. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
Next up, we have our Ulforces. They're fantastic. Best card in my deck by far. Sec +1 unsuspend is just absurd. Being able to bounce back a blocker and having the opponent go, "Oh no, I didn't think I was dead here," is pretty cool until you hit into a Wyvern's Breath and then you want to die. But you know, that is what it be sometimes. You're not playing a red deck with a delicate plan. Not that I'm calling anyone out here.
Weird. Couldn't be me. Anyway.
Weird, huh? Anyway. No, but yeah, it's the whole reason to play the deck. He's fantastic whenever you get up to him. And the fact that sometimes the warp does come up and then you can bounce a Blanc or a CL and then walk over the Jesmon is pretty huge, to be honest.
Gotcha.
From there, we have our Omni package. We're playing 2 BT1 Omni, 1 Blitz Omni, and 1 X Antibody. So the reason I opted for 2-1-1 is because this Omni facilitates the aggression a lot. It gives you a card back to your hand in terms of like the Ulforce or whatever level 6. It removes multiple bodies, which prevents like swarming decks from being able to deal with, like, dispatch me effectively because I'm bouncing with Ulforce, I'm popping with Omnis, etc. I need the Blitz Omni for the SecCon matchup, otherwise you just auto-lose. There's no good way to handle SecCon in this deck. You could play like a delicate plan in the red Taikamias. That's just not worth it. It's just too many bricks in this deck where you need like every card in your hand. And then X Antibody is one of the best cards this format because Jesmon can't out it without Gaia Force. Gabubon can't out it without like Cocytus Breath. And it doesn't really come into play against SecCon unless you're Digivolving it over another Omnimon and then like clearing the opponent's board. But yeah, stopping attacks is like really good in this game. Who knew?
X Antibody is really strong. That card's really hard to deal with if you're a Jesmon player.
It's just absurd. And then pretty standard, 3 of my, what is it, $20 card at this point? Davis Montoya?
Yeah, Davis is super expensive.
Yeah, dude, Davis is crazy. But really good tamer, always at least like a 1-for-1. I mean, it's almost always grabbing 1 card. I don't think it's ever missed for me yet, which I've only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 14 chances to whiff, technically, but seeing 3 of those isn't super high. Yeah, he's just fantastic. I'm not sure how much I really need to talk about that one. We're playing 4 Hammer Spark because it's a blue deck, and you're playing Hammer Spark in some capacity.
Until there are some... Ice Wall.
Yeah, right. There are some times where you have to play this, and then you're down to 7 cards in your hand. That feels awful, which is why I started to like focus more on like the Gabus, the Drabus specifically, and the Beamons being able to like swing, draw 2 off the Uppa, and then the Beamon unsuspend the Ulforce, play a Hammer Spark, go up to 3, swing Ulforce, draw a card off of the Beamon. It's just pretty impactful. a lot of the time just getting more of those cards, because if you can see these, you're usually winning the game. From there, we have 2 blue memory boost. It's Hammer Spark, but it also replaces itself in the hand. It just takes a little bit of setup, and when you're digging for like your level 5s, your level 6s for the OTK, it helps out a ton. And finally, we have 2 Cocytus Breath, because there are just some times where you need to get lucky in your security to deal with Jesmon, or Gabu Bond, and Cocytus Breath comes up.
Definitely.
So,
That's super solid. Have you thought about anything like Absolute Blast or like even Rattlestar?
I have not thought about Absolute Blast specifically because I'm not doing any Source Strip shenanigans. There is an argument for playing like this Ulforce in the Hexablow Azulong deck, and if I was, then I would probably change my bounce spell. But because this deck has access to this Omnimon for security control, it's not like Gabu Bond where they need to have removal cards that deal with a problem permanently. So yeah, don't think that Absolute Blast is really needed. Rattlestar is a consideration. Um, Something that I also need to do testing with, I suppose.
Gotcha. Any final thoughts? Any shout outs you want to give?
Shoutouts to the Digi Academy. Izzy's gonna win this local event that he's currently in right now. Yeah, no, shout out to the whole team. Shout out to the TCS Discord. They're always a great group of guys to play with. Shout out to Gaia Force Gaming, who has made this year just so much more enjoyable in terms of Digimon. And shout out to you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this man. He deserves it.
Yeah, guys, if you like the video, press the YouTube buttons.
The subscribe button. We'll get them, guys. Don't worry about it.
The YouTube buttons. Yeah. Besides that,
Twitch.
Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for your deck profile, Nobu.
Yeah, no problem. Take care.